In this section, we are going to see how to manipulate the DOM using jQuery. Since native JavaScript code does not have a for each loop, we have to use an indexed for loop to accomplish this using the DOM way. For instance, we get all documents of a particular type, in this case, list items. Then we create a for loop, looping through each element according to the length. Finally, inside of the loop, we can access the element through the indexed array. However, in jQuery, they provide us with a for each loop to iterate through each element of the array. The jQuery each loop is a single line of code using the jQuery object. On the jQuery object, the function .each is called, in which a function is defined. This loop can be indexed or not depending on your preference. With an indexed each loop, the E object is a plain old DOM object, but it can be easily upgraded to a jQuery object if you need it to be. Since the loop uses a function to do its work, you can exit the loop early by simply returning false. In a non-indexed jQuery each loop, the keyword this is able to be used instead of E. This element still needs to be upgraded to a jQuery object if you need that type of object and not a plain old DOM object. A DOM object has many fields that allow the object to be manipulated in JavaScript. Most of the DOM fields correspond to the attributes in the HTML tags, but not all of them. In this example here, the HTML attributes title and ID have a direct correspondence to the DOM field, .title and .id. However, class and style are not the same. While you would use the attribute class in HTML, in the DOM field you need to do class name, and the style attribute has an entirely different syntax yet. To get or set classes using the DOM, the field class name is used. The value to be set in class name is a class that is defined in the CSS. While working with one class per element, this is not so bad. But because class name is only a string with each class name being separated by a space, this makes it difficult to add or remove classes when there are multiples. This field really needs to be an array. For instance, in this example here, we get an element by ID, then we check to see if it has a class name or not. We do this by checking for an empty string. If it does not have a class name, we simply assign it the text value that we want. If it already has a class name, we have to do additional checking or removal of other classes using string manipulation. After we do that, we have to do a string concatenation with a space in it with the new class name that we want to add to the class name list. Working with classes in jQuery is much easier. It has built-in functions, add class, remove class, has class, toggle class that can be used to manipulate CSS classes. It is a similar process to the DOM properties, but you don't have to manually separate the classes by spaces or search for specific classes in the middle of the list. In this example here, all we have to do is check if this ID has a class called invalid, and if it does not, we add the class highlight to it without having to do string manipulation on the class name property. jQuery has enhanced CSS functionality for reading pre-existing styles. The CSS function is not for reading styles set by a class from the style sheet, but for styles defined in the style attribute of the HTML element. jQuery makes a change from using a camel-cased syntax of the styles back to the CSS syntax of using a dash. However, jQuery allows for both types of syntaxes to be used. When using the CSS function, if only the property name is used, this is getting a value of that property. However, if you provide a value to the style, that property is then updated. jQuery uses the same functions for both getting and setting. If only a single property is passed into the function, this is oftentimes treated as a getter. The jQuery get typically only gets the first of the selected elements. In this example here, only the first font size property is returned from the list of the 3 li items. A jQuery set occurs when both the property name and the value are passed into the function. On a set, all of the selected DOM objects are affected, unlike a get where that is only the first element in the list. Many jQuery object methods are overloaded and the same method works in different fashions. As we have seen, a getter only takes a property name while the setter takes a property name and the value. jQuery also has a multi-setter syntax. Instead of calling the same method again and again, the args are wrapped in an array type of syntax and each arg is then separated by a comma. jQuery's modifier syntax provides a clean way of doing additional computation work inside of a setter by accepting a function definition. Instead of doing the work in a single line in the setter argument of a method, the work is best done inside of an anonymous function. Just don't go too crazy on these and have large and complex functions. If you do, it is best to define it as a standard method and then call it to retrieve the value. By default, a jQuery object is returned unless a specified object type is requested through a get. In these examples here, only the CSS getter returns back a string, where the rest of the methods return back the same jQuery object. This allows for a direct use of the jQuery object without having to first get the object, store it in a variable, and then do the work on the variable. In the last example in the list, you can call a jQuery method on the objects that have just had the special class added to them. Another feature added by jQuery is chaining. Instead of using the same object and making separate calls to the functions, jQuery allows this to happen on the same jQuery object. As in this example here, instead of creating 3 different jQuery objects and making single method calls for each of them, this can be done on the same jQuery object. To create a chain, you first create a jQuery object and then continue to add the different method calls to the object. To terminate a jQuery string, a semicolon is used on the last statement in the chain. Please note that you should only use function calls for jQuery chaining. While you can use an assignment, a semicolon must be used for the assignment, which terminates the chain. Instead of using an assignment for a DOM field, use the jQuery attribute or attr method instead. While we have only looked at the CSS method for node manipulation using jQuery, jQuery has many more methods that can be used for node manipulation. Here is a list of some additional methods. An element can be hidden with a hide method, or it can be shown again with a show. This is the same as toggling the display on or off in the CSS. The empty method removes everything inside of the element. This is the same as setting inner HTML to an empty string. The HTML method gets or sets the inner HTML without escaping the HTML tags. The text method gets or sets the inner HTML but with escaping the HTML tags that might be present in the text string. The val method gets or sets the value of a form input, select control, text area, or other form controls. The height and width methods get or set the element's dimensions. This returned value is a number, not a string.